The galaxy called us fragile. Then we did the unthinkable. They say the moment that changed everything happened in silence. No explosions, no battle cries, just a single human voice, crackling through the void of space, speaking words that would echo across 1,000 worlds. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the day the Krell Dominion arrived at Earth. The day they looked at us with those cold, calculating eyes and decided we were nothing. Less than nothing. A footnote in their grand conquest of the Orion Arm. They had conquered 4 to 7 civilizations in 3 centuries. They had weapons that could crack planets, shields that bent light itself, an empire so vast that our entire solar system could fit in one of their administrative districts. And us, we had barely made it to Mars. They expected us to surrender in hours, to beg, to grovel. They were right about one thing: it wouldn't take long. But they were dead wrong about everything else. My name is Captain Sarah Chen, and this is the story of how humanity, fragile, foolish, impossibly stubborn humanity, did the one thing the galaxy thought was impossible. We said no. The first Krell ship appeared over New York City on a Tuesday morning. I was in Colorado Springs at the time, deep in the NORAD command center, watching the radar screens light up like a Christmas tree gone haywire. Every satellite we had was screaming. Every sensor was redlining. And there, hanging in low orbit like a dark moon, was something that shouldn't exist. Jesus Christ, whispered Lieutenant Marcus Webb beside me. His coffee cup slipped from his fingers, shattering on the floor. Nobody noticed. We were all staring at the main screen. The ship was massive, easily 20 kilometers long, shaped like a serrated blade, its hull the color of deep space itself. It didn't reflect light so much as devour it. And it wasn't alone. Within minutes, 6 more appeared over major cities: Beijing, London, Moscow, Sao Paulo, Mumbai, Lagos. Said Sergeant Kim Park, her voice tight. We're receiving a transmission. All frequencies. Every device on the planet. Put it through. The voice that filled the command center was cold, mechanical, translated by technology we couldn't begin to understand. But the message was crystal clear. Humans of Earth, you are now subjects of the Krell Dominion. Resistance is futile. Compliance is mandatory. You have 1 planetary rotation to surrender your governments, your weapons, and your autonomy. Failure to comply will result in systematic elimination. This is your only warning. The transmission ended. Silence crashed over us like a wave. General Robert Hawkins, a man I'd served under for 15 years, a man I'd never seen rattled, turned to me with eyes that had aged a decade in 30 seconds. Captain Chen, get me the president. Get me the Joint Chiefs. Get me everyone. His voice cracked slightly. And God help us all. I'd like to think we handled it well, considering. No panic. No chaos. Just cold, professional terror. Within an hour, every military installation on Earth was on high alert. Within 2, the president was in the Situation Room with leaders from every major nation on a secure video link. Within 3, we knew exactly how screwed we were. Our best missiles, intercepted before they left the atmosphere. Our most advanced fighters, swatted from the sky like insects. Our nuclear arsenal, they had shields that could tank a direct hit and not even flicker. We threw everything we had at them in those first 6 hours. Everything. It wasn't enough. It wasn't even close. By nightfall, the Krell had made their point. 7 cities had been pacified. Their word, not ours. Precision strikes that took out military installations, power grids, communication hubs. Surgical, efficient, terrifying. The death toll was in the thousands. It could have been millions. That was the message. We're being merciful. Don't make us stop. I was back in the command center when the second transmission came through. This time, it was different. This time, we could see them. The screen flickered to life, showing the interior of one of their ships. And there, standing before us, was a Krell. They were tall, easily 7 feet, with elongated limbs and skin that looked like polished obsidian. Their eyes were large, multifaceted, reflecting light in unsettling ways. They wore armor that seemed to flow like liquid metal, and when the one on screen spoke, its mouth didn't move. The translation came directly into our minds, a sensation that made my skin crawl. I am Warlord Keshtar, Supreme Commander of the Krell Expeditionary Force. Your resistance has been noted and dismissed. You have 12 hours remaining. Surrender or face extinction. General Hawkins stepped forward, his jaw set. This is General Robert Hawkins of the United States Armed Forces. We need more time. We need to consult with. You need nothing but to obey. Keshtar interrupted. Your species is primitive. Your technology is laughable. Your military is irrelevant. You have no leverage, no options, no hope. The Krell tilted its head, an almost curious gesture. Why do you resist? 4 to 7 civilizations have stood where you stand now. All chose survival. All chose to serve. Why do you choose death? Hawkins was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was steady. Because we're human, and humans don't kneel. Keshtar made a sound that might have been laughter. Then humans will die. The transmission ended. The next 8 hours were a blur of desperate planning, impossible calculations, and the slow, crushing realization that we were out of options. Every scenario we ran ended the same way. Total defeat. Complete annihilation. But then, something strange happened. It started with a message from Dr. Elena Vasquez, head of the SETI program. She'd been monitoring the Krell communications, trying to find any weakness, any pattern we could exploit. What she found instead was something else entirely. Captain Chen, you need to see this, she said, her face pale on the video screen. The Krell, they're not just talking to each other. They're talking about us. And what they're saying, it doesn't make sense. I pulled up the translated intercepts on my terminal. The Krell used a complex language, but our AI had been working overtime to decode it. What I read made my blood run cold, not because it was threatening, but because it was confused. The humans continue to resist despite overwhelming odds. Psychological profile suggests irrational attachment to abstract concepts, freedom, dignity, hope. Recommend immediate termination to prevent cultural contamination. Warlord Keshtar, the humans have made no attempt to negotiate for survival. This is unprecedented. All previous species prioritized self-preservation. Request guidance. Analysis indicates humans possess abnormal tolerance for sacrifice. They appear willing to die for intangible ideals. This behavior does not compute with standard conquest protocols. I read the messages 3 times, my mind racing. Then it hit me. They didn't understand us. At all. The Krell had conquered 4 to 7 civilizations, but every single one had been rational. Logical. They'd done the math, seen the odds, and surrendered. It made sense. It was the smart play. But humans, we'd never been good at math when it came to things that mattered. I grabbed my phone and called General Hawkins. So, I think I know what we need to do. Captain, unless you found a way to build a fleet of starships in the next 4 hours, I don't want to hear it. It's not about winning, sir. It's about making them think twice. There was a pause. I'm listening. The gambit. The plan was insane. Suicidal, even. But it was all we had. We couldn't beat the Krell in a straight fight. We couldn't outrun them. We couldn't hide. But we could do one thing they'd never seen before. We could make them question whether conquering Earth was worth the cost. Not in ships or soldiers, they had plenty of those, but in something more valuable, certainty. The Krell operated on logic, on predictable patterns. They'd conquered 4 to 7 civilizations because those civilizations had behaved predictably. They'd surrendered when the math said surrender was the only option. We were going to break their math. General Hawkins brought the plan to the president, who brought it to the world leaders. The response was mixed. Some thought it was brilliant, others thought it was suicide. But in the end, everyone agreed on one thing. We had nothing left to lose. With 2 hours left on the Krell ultimatum, we sent our response. It wasn't a surrender. It wasn't a plea for mercy. It was a challenge. Warlord Keshtar, this is Captain Sarachan of the United Earth Defense Force. We've received your ultimatum. We've considered your terms, and we have a counteroffer. Leave now, and we'll let you live. I could almost feel the confusion radiating through the transmission. You let us live. Keshtar's voice was incredulous. You have no weapons that can harm us. No defenses that can stop us. You are primitives playing with fire. Maybe, I said, keeping my voice calm. But here's the thing about humans, Warlord. We're really good at playing with fire. We've been doing it for 200,000 years. And every time someone told us we couldn't do something, we did it anyway. We flew when physics said we couldn't. We split the atom when common sense said we shouldn't. We went to the moon because it was hard. Your achievements are irrelevant. You cannot defeat us. You're right. We can't. Not today. Maybe not ever. I paused, letting the words hang. But we can make you bleed. We can make every city you take cost you ships. Every human you kill will take 10 of yours with them. We can turn this planet into a graveyard that will haunt your empire for generations. You would sacrifice your entire species for pride. No, I said quietly. We'd sacrifice our entire species for freedom. There's a difference. Silence. Long, heavy silence. Then, you are bluffing. You have no weapons capable of. We have 7 billion people who would rather die free than live as slaves. We have a planet full of resources you want. But if you take it by force, we'll make sure there's nothing left worth taking. We'll poison the wells, burn the fields, collapse the mines. We'll make Earth worthless to you. Another pause, longer this time. And if we simply eliminate you from orbit, sterilize the planet, then you get a dead rock and a reputation. Every other species in the galaxy will know that the mighty Krell Dominion was so afraid of one primitive planet that they had to glass it from space. They'll know you couldn't break us. They'll know we chose death over submission. I leaned forward, and they'll start wondering, if the humans could defy you, what's stopping us? The transmission cut out. For 6 hours, nothing happened. The Krell ships hung in orbit, silent and still. We waited, every military installation on Earth ready for the end. I spent those hours in the command center, watching the screens, drinking terrible coffee, and trying not to think about my family in California. My mom, my little brother, my niece who'd just turned 5. Lieutenant Webb sat beside me, his leg bouncing nervously. You think it worked? I don't know, I admitted. But if it didn't, at least we went out swinging. Sergeant Park looked up from her console. We're receiving another transmission. It's Keshtar. Put it through. The Krell warlord appeared on screen, and for the first time, I saw something in those alien eyes that looked almost like respect. Captain Chen, your species is either the bravest or the most foolish I have encountered. Perhaps both. Keshtar's head tilted. The Dominion Council has reviewed your proposal. They have concluded that conquering Earth would require resources disproportionate to its strategic value. Additionally, your threat to render the planet worthless has been deemed credible. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. So we are withdrawing. For now. Keshtar leaned closer to the camera. But understand this, human, you have not won. You have merely delayed the inevitable. The Dominion will return when you are more compliant. When your spirit has been broken by time and isolation. We'll be waiting, I said, and we'll be ready. We shall see. The transmission started to fade, but Keshtar's voice came through one last time. You are a fascinating species, Captain Chen. Irrational, emotional, fragile, but perhaps there is strength in that fragility. Perhaps that is why you terrify us. The screen went dark. Part 3. The Aftermath. The Krell ships left Earth's orbit at dawn. I watched them go from the observation deck at NORAD, standing beside General Hawkins and a dozen other officers who'd been awake for 48 hours straight. We did it, Webb whispered, his voice hoarse. Holy shit, we actually did it. We bought time, Hawkins corrected, but there was a smile on his weathered face. Nothing more. They'll be back. Then we'll be ready, I said, echoing my words to Keshtar. Hawkins turned to me. You know what you did, Captain? You didn't just save Earth. You changed the game. Every species in the galaxy that's under Krell rule just learned something important. Resistance is possible. Defiance works. The Dominion isn't invincible. We got lucky, sir. Luck had nothing to do with it. You understood something the Krell didn't. Humans don't run the numbers when it comes to freedom. We don't calculate the odds when it comes to dignity. We just fight." He clapped me on the shoulder. "That's not luck, Captain. That's who we are." The weeks that followed were chaotic. The world had to come to terms with the fact that we weren't alone in the universe, and that the universe was far more dangerous than we'd imagined. But something else happened too. Something unexpected. We united. For the first time in human history, every nation on Earth was working toward the same goal: survival. Not just survival, preparation. We knew the Krell would return. We knew we needed to be ready. Dr. Vasquez's SETI program was transformed into the Xenotechnology Research Division, tasked with reverse engineering any Krell tech we could get our hands on. We'd recovered fragments from the few drones they'd sent down during the initial assault. Not much, but enough to start learning. The military underwent a complete overhaul. Every branch, every nation, coordinating under a new unified command structure, the United Earth Defense Force. I was promoted to commander and put in charge of strategic planning. But the most important change was cultural. People started looking up at the stars differently, not with wonder or curiosity, but with determination. We'd been given a glimpse of what was out there, and we decided we weren't going to be victims. We were going to be survivors. Fighters. Maybe, one day, equals. 6 months after the Krell left, I was in my office at the new UDF headquarters in Geneva when Dr. Vasquez called. "Commander Chen, you need to come to the lab. Now." I'd learned not to argue with Elena when she used that tone. 20 minutes later, I was standing in her research facility, staring at something that looked like a cross between a circuit board and a living organism. "What am I looking at?" "Krell communication technology," Elena said, her eyes bright with excitement. "We've been trying to crack it for months, and we finally did. And Commander, we've been listening to their transmissions, the ones they are sending back to the Dominion. And they are scared of us." I blinked. "What?" Elena pulled up a holographic display, showing translated Krell text. "Look at this. These are reports from Warlord Keshtar to the Dominion Council. He's not just reporting that we're resisted, he's warning them. He's telling them that humans are a potential threat, that our irrational behavior makes us unpredictable, that our willingness to sacrifice everything makes us dangerous." I read the reports, my mind reeling. The Krell weren't just wary of us. They were actively debating whether to quarantine our entire sector of space. "There's more," Elena continued. "We've intercepted communications from other species. Word is spreading about what happened here, about how we defied the Dominion. And Commander, some of them are starting to resist too." "You're kidding." "I'm not. There's a species called the Thalen in the Carina sector. They've been under Krell rule for 80 years. Last week, they refused to meet their resource quotas. When the Krell threatened them, they cited Earth as an example. They said, if the humans can say no, so can we." I sat down heavily in the nearest chair. "We started a rebellion. We started a revolution," Elena corrected. "The Krell have ruled through fear and overwhelming force for centuries. But fear only works if people believe resistance is impossible. We proved it's not. We proved that even a primitive species with no chance of winning can make the cost too high." The return. They came back exactly 1 year later. Not with 7 ships this time. With 70. I was in the command center when the alarms went off, watching the screens light up with hostile contacts. My stomach dropped. "All stations. Battle stations," I ordered, my voice steady despite the fear clawing at my chest. "This is not a drill. Krell fleet detected in high orbit. Estimated strength, 70 capital ships, unknown number of support craft." General Hawkins appeared on the main screen from his post in Washington. "Commander Chen, status report." "So, they brought an armada. We're looking at 10 times the force they used last year. Then we give them 10 times the fight." Hawkins' face was grim but determined. "All UEDF forces engaged defensive protocols. We knew this day would come. Let's show them we meant what we said." The Krell didn't bother with an ultimatum this time. They just attacked. But we weren't the same species they'd left behind. In the years since their departure, we'd done the impossible. We'd built a fleet. Not a big one, Only 30 ships, cobbled together from reverse-engineered Krell tech and human ingenuity. They were ugly, asymmetrical things, held together with welds and prayers. But they could fly, they could fight, and they were crewed by humans who had nothing left to lose. All ships, this is Commander Chen. Engage at will. Make every shot count. And remember, we're not trying to win. We're trying to make them regret coming back. The battle that followed was brutal. We lost ships. We lost people. But we made them pay for every inch of space, every second of time. Our weapons were crude compared to theirs, but we'd learned to be creative. We used kinetic strikes, ramming damaged ships into theirs. We used nuclear mines, hidden in debris fields. We used tactics they'd never seen before because we'd never fought a space battle before. We were making it up as we went along. And somehow, impossibly, we were holding our own. I was coordinating the defense from the bridge of the UEDF flagship Defiance when the communication came through. It was Keshta. Commander Chen, cease your resistance. You cannot win. We don't need to win, I shot back, watching another Krell cruiser take critical damage from one of our torpedo spreads. We just need to make you bleed. You are sacrificing your people for nothing. Surrender now, and the Dominion will show mercy. We tried mercy last year. You came back anyway. I leaned forward. So here's the new deal, Warlord. You can leave now, or we can keep fighting until there's nothing left of either of us. Your choice. There was a long pause. Then, you have become more dangerous than anticipated. The Council was wrong to let you live. Yeah, well, we have a saying on Earth. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. You should have finished us when you had the chance. Another pause. Then, something I didn't expect. Perhaps. Or perhaps we should have never come at all. The Krell fleet began to withdraw. Not all of them. We'd damaged too many for a clean retreat. But the majority pulled back, leaving their wounded behind. It was a tactical withdrawal, but it was also something more, an admission. We'd hurt them, badly. The message. 3 days after the battle, we received a transmission. Not from Keshta, but from the Dominion Council itself. The being on the screen was ancient, its obsidian skin marked with scars and symbols of rank. When it spoke, the translation carried weight, authority, and something that might have been respect. Humans of Earth, I am Archon Velkoth, voice of the Dominion Council. We have observed your species with great interest. You have done what no other species has done. You have resisted us twice. You have cost us ships, soldiers, and credibility. You have inspired rebellion across our territories. I stood before the camera, flanked by General Hawkins and President Martinez. Is this the part where you threaten to glass our planet? No, Commander Chen. This is the part where we offer you a choice. Velkoth's multifaceted eyes seem to bore into me. The Dominion has ruled for 3,000 years through strength and fear. But you have shown us something we had forgotten. That strength without wisdom is tyranny. That fear without respect is fragile. What are you saying? I am saying that the Dominion is changing. Your resistance has forced us to question our methods. Other species are watching. If we destroy you, we prove that we are tyrants. If we leave you alone, we prove that we are weak. So we offer a third option, alliance. The word hung in the air like a bomb. You want us to join you? Hawkins asked, his voice incredulous. We want you to teach us, Velkoth corrected. You possess something we have lost. The ability to fight for ideals rather than survival. The willingness to sacrifice for others. The strength that comes from unity rather than domination. The Archon leaned forward. The galaxy is vast, Commander Chen. There are threats far greater than the Dominion. Threats that require cooperation, not conquest. We believe humanity could be valuable allies in the struggles to come. I exchanged glances with Hawkins and Martinez. This was insane. Impossible. And yet, what would this alliance look like? I asked carefully. Mutual defense. Technology exchange. Cultural cooperation. Earth would retain its sovereignty. Humanity would retain its freedom. In exchange, you would help us reform the Dominion from within. Help us become something better than conquerors. And if we refuse, then we leave. Permanently. We will quarantine your sector and never return. You will be free and alone. When the true threats emerge, you will face them without allies, without support, without hope. It was a hell of a sales pitch. The debate that followed lasted weeks. Every nation, every leader, every citizen had an opinion. Some wanted to tell the Krell to go to hell. Others saw the opportunity for what it was, a chance to not just survive, but to thrive. To take our place among the stars not as victims, but as equals. In the end, it came down to a vote. The United Earth Council, representing every nation on the planet, cast their ballots. The result was close, but it was clear. We said yes. 5 years later, I'm writing this from the bridge of the UEDF Horizon, humanity's first deep space exploration vessel. We're 3 months into a joint mission with the Krell, mapping uncharted regions of the Sagittarius Arm. It's been 5 years since we made the alliance. 5 years of change, growth, and occasional setbacks. The Krell are learning to be partners instead of conquerors. We're learning to be explorers instead of just survivors. It hasn't been easy. There's still tension, still mistrust, still moments when I look at my Krell crewmates and remember the day their ships hung over Earth like a death sentence. But there are other moments too. Moments when we work together to solve a problem. When we share a meal in the mess hall. When a Krell engineer and a human technician figure out a solution that neither could have found alone. Yesterday, I was in the observation deck with Keshtar. Yes, that Keshtar. He's our liaison officer now, assigned to help bridge the cultural gap between our species. We stood in silence for a while, watching the stars stream past. Then he spoke. I've been thinking about our first encounter, Commander Chen, about the day you told me that humans would rather die than kneel. I remember, I said quietly. I thought you were bluffing. I thought no species could truly mean such a thing. But you did, and that terrified me. He turned to look at me with those strange, multifaceted eyes. Do you know why? Because we were unpredictable. No, because you reminded us of what we used to be. Keshtar's voice was soft. 3,000 years ago, the Krell were like you. We fought for ideals. We valued freedom. We believed in something greater than survival. But we forgot. We became what we are now, efficient, logical, empty. And now we are remembering. Because of you. Because you showed us that strength without purpose is just violence. That survival without meaning is just existence. He placed a hand on my shoulder, a gesture he'd learned from humans. You saved us, Commander Chen, not from destruction, but from ourselves. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded. We stood there together, human and Krell, watching the stars. And I thought about how far we'd come. How a species that couldn't even reach Mars 5 years ago was now exploring the galaxy. How we'd gone from being victims to being partners. How we'd taken our fragility and turned it into strength. The galaxy had called us fragile. They'd underestimated us. They'd thought we'd break. They were wrong. We didn't break. We bent. We adapted. We survived. And in surviving, we changed everything. That's the thing about humans. We're not the strongest species. We're not the smartest. We're not the most advanced. But we're the ones who refuse to give up. Who fight for what we believe in. Who turn our weaknesses into weapons and our fears into fuel. We're the ones who look at impossible odds and say, watch this. We're the ones who did the unthinkable. And we're just getting started.